Boris Johnson and Zac Goldsmith are expected to arrive in Manchester this evening for the Conservative Party conference. From there, our political correspondent Simon Harris looks ahead.
Boris Johnson's conference speech is traditionally one of the highlights for many Conservative Party members. But when the Mayor of London takes to the stage this year, it will be in a new and unfamiliar role. He'll be the warm-up act for a new rising star among London Tories, Zac Goldsmith. On Tuesday, it'll be the Zac and Boris show in the main hall as the current mayor introduces the man the party hopes will be the next mayor. And London Conservatives will be wondering whether they've found themselves a new conference darling.
The Prime Minister has ruled out increasing stop and search in response to the rise in knife crime in London. 10 teenagers have been stabbed to death in the capital this year. Knife crime is up 22%, leading some to call for a return to widespread stop and search. But speaking to our political correspondent Simon Harris at the Conservative Party conference in Manchester, David Cameron said that is not the answer.
Prime Minister, the police in London are under increasing pressure from the Home Office to do fewer stop and searches. Yet this year, 10 teenagers have been knifed to death. Something's going wrong, isn't it?
Well, I think what's important on stop and search is to follow the evidence. And the evidence is around the country that it should be a targeted power and shouldn't be used too indiscriminately, because that causes problems of its own. On knife crime, look, it's tragic. There have been these appalling murders. Overall, knife crime is down, and we put in place tougher sentences, tougher mandatory sentences on knife crime. But I think we have to recognise when it comes to knife crime, you've got to address every aspect of the problem, what we teach in schools, what we teach and how we bring up our young people, as well as policing techniques.
Yet senior officers say stop and search saves lives, and at the moment they feel they're being asked to do too few.
Well, I don't accept that. I listen very carefully, not only to the Home Secretary's views about this, but also the views of chief constables from around the country. And they've been confident that the new approach on stop and search taken around the country is working. It's still a power that they have, but it should be a targeted power, not an indiscriminate one.
The Met's also facing unprecedented cuts in funding, 800 million they're bracing themselves for this year. They may have to get rid of all community support officers. That can't be right, can it, at the time when the population's increasing?
Well, the Met in London have done an excellent job reducing crime, and they've demonstrated over the last 5 years that you can do more with less, that there are efficiencies you can find, and you can get more officers on the front line, you can cut crime and save money. And we're asking them to continue to do that job. How exactly the money is saved, and indeed the money is spent, will be a matter for them. I think community support officers do an excellent job. They're very visible, eyes and ears out there in the public and very much welcomed by the public.
So you think the Met would be wrong to go down that road and get rid of PCSOs if that's the way they think they have to fund the cuts?
It's a matter for the police authority, of course, the Mayor and his team, and a matter for the Met to discuss. But I'm convinced that they can make savings while providing good policing, cracking down on crime, as they've been over the last 5 years.
So were the police wrong to spend £200,000 plus on water cannon, which you won't licence?
Well, this is an important debate where we have to follow the science and follow the evidence, and the Home Secretary's clear view is that the evidence isn't yet there, but no one is saying that will be the case forever and a day. There could be circumstances in the future where that view would change, and that's the right approach to take.
Do you think Boris Johnson was right to authorise the purchase of the water cannon?
I support what the Mayor does, and I think he does an excellent job, but here there's a very important role, which is for the Home Secretary to decide whether this should be licensed. And on the basis of the advice she received and the evidence to date, the decision wasn't to do so. But that wasn't ruling it out forever and a day. It was saying that, on the current advice, it wasn't time yet.
Finally, what's your tip to Zac Goldsmith in a town that's swung to Labour recently?
Well, what I think, look, this is one of the most amazing cities on earth, and it's had an excellent Conservative mayor in Boris Johnson, who's done a great job. I think Zac would continue a lot of that work. Londoners want to know we're going to go on investing in public transport. They want a greener, cleaner London, something Zac is passionate about. We need to build more houses, particularly for young people to be able to buy, and that's something I'll be working hand in glove with Zac over. So I'm sure it'll be a lively contest, but I think we've got a great candidate who can fire people up and do a great job following on from Boris's great legacy.
Now the Prime Minister there speaking to Simon Harris. And Simon joins us now from Manchester. So Simon, a big day for the current mayor tomorrow and also the man who hopes to replace him. What can we expect from them both?
Well, Lucrezia, tomorrow really is going to be the Zach and Boris show as both of them take to the stage at the same time here in the main conference hall. Both men are already in Manchester. Boris Johnson found himself being pelted with plastic balls when he arrived at the conference centre earlier this afternoon. He was the target of a protest by disability rights campaigners. We expect him to use his speech to remind the party, subtly or otherwise, that he still has ambitions beyond City Hall and to remind them of his ability, his strengths as an election weapon. As for Zac Goldsmith, it really is his big moment, his chance to show the party what he's about and inevitably draw comparisons with the man he hopes to succeed, which is enough to give anyone stage fright.
All right, Simon, thank you.
Two men with similar backgrounds but contrasting styles made two very different pictures for power at today's Tory conference. Boris Johnson left no doubt where his intentions lie. His joke-laden speech delighted the party faithful, who he knows have the power to make him the next Prime Minister. Zac Goldsmith, who hopes to succeed him as mayor, had a much more measured approach. He was determined to talk up his Green credentials. Our political correspondent Simon Harris was in Manchester to hear both.
They arrived together, the sorcerer and his apprentice, Zac Goldsmith, eager to master Boris Johnson's magic touch in the conference hall and at the ballot box.
Boris Johnson defied political gravity by beating Ken Livingstone twice. And
the Tories' new candidate appeared nervous and a little hesitant at times, but quickly wrapped himself in his comfort blanket, the environment.
we need to guarantee that every child and every family has access to somewhere to play, to grow, to cherish. London is already the greatest city on earth, but I want it to be the greenest.
That drew polite, if not enthusiastic, applause, but the big cheers were reserved for the man who's stepping down from City Hall, the conference comic turn.
Trots and militants with vested interests, and indeed interesting vests, they are the people.
Boris Johnson used his farewell conference speech as mayor to look forward as well as back.
We will defeat the haters of beauty, and we will install a wonderful new garden bridge. We will get our city the night tube it needs, and if we are going to build new airport capacity, let's not bodge it with one runway in the wrong place in a short-termist, old, failed, tired, and environmentally disastrous solution. One of the many things, Zach, on which you and I write one. Let's compete.
The current mayor and the man who hopes to succeed him didn't appear on stage at the same time, but comparisons were inevitable.
Boris is the great tub thumper of party conference, as we have seen this morning. But I think people will underestimate Zach. I think he's got a natural, friendly manner, which certainly came over well today.
So what did delegates make of their new candidate?
And one of the things that really stands out about Zach is that it really champions the Green agenda, which I think is a weak part.
Not very Tory.
Well, it's a weak part of the Tory policy, and I think that he will really start pushing it forward.
We don't want London turning into a polluted mess.
They're not kind of competing to be the main comedian in a sense. It's a very, they're very different styles, and I think hopefully they should complement each other very well.
Thank you very much indeed.
7 months from now, Boris Johnson will no longer be London's mayor. Today was the day the Tory baton was passed.
OK, it has been passed, but is there a danger that Zac Goldsmith will struggle to keep up with Boris's popularity, the pace of that, in the months to come?
Well, Nina, they might both be old Etonians, both London MPs, but the difference in style between the two men was there for all to see today. Boris Johnson is a performer, jokes are part of his act. There were far fewer laughs in Zac Goldsmith's speech. But then his main campaign themes are serious, like tackling the housing crisis and air pollution. And at the end of the day, he's not in a popularity contest with Boris Johnson. His main rival is Sadiq Khan, the Labour candidate. It's also emerged today that Boris Johnson is being lined up for a top job in government when he leaves City Hall in May. The Prime Minister has confirmed in an unprecedented way, months ahead of a reshuffle, that he plans to offer the outgoing mayor a post in his cabinet.
Simon Harris, thank you.